After everything that had happened at home, I figured that spending a day at the beach would help me decompress. But my son did something totally out of the blue as we strolled along the shore. And everything was altered. It's been 2 years since everything changed. It was going to be simply me, son Leo, and I were going to the beach. Ethan, my spouse, was unable to accompany us. He didn't. The most important thing was always work, and I was accustomed to being by myself. However, there was something odd about that day. Not just then, but now as well. As the sun warmed us, we laid out the towels. That day might have been too warm. Enjoying a rare respite from the bustle of the outside world, I lay down and requested Leo to assist me in applying sunscreen to my back. I didn't give it much thought. I have a child. My child. Why would I? Initially, it appeared like he was merely lending me a hand. Then I noticed it. He moved lower and lower, touching me again. I didn't stop him. Why didn't I do it? You think you understand yourself. You are a member of the family, but occasionally, everything might fall apart in a single minute. That day, it happened at the beach for me. I haven't been the same since. Ethan and I have been wed for more than 15 years. People who knew us would have told you that we were a stable existence, a fantastic home, a wonderful match, and wonderful kids. One does not become aware of the issues until they are inside. You can't feel hollow unless you're actually experiencing it. For years, Ethan's work consumed all of his thoughts. Holidays, late evenings, and even weekends. He took care of things for us. I used to remind myself that his dedication and hard work were intended to improve our family's situation and the future. But after a while, that line of reasoning became illogical. What is the value of a house if no one resides there? He was no longer able to see me. When he arrived home, he hardly gave me a glance. He ceased inquiring about my needs, wants, and health. For brief periods, we discussed topics like the kids, food, and bills. He had affection for Leo and his younger sister, Lily. Even with them present, he resembled a ghost more than anything else. Although it is present, it is not truly there. I used to wonder whether he still saw me when I sat across from him at the table. I had vivid memories of that morning. I was in the kitchen when Ethan raced out the door. He pulled out his suitcase, gave me a short glance, and kissed Lily on the head. I apologize, Freya. I am unable to attend today. He claimed that an issue arose at work. I didn't make an argument. As usual, I simply nodded and swallowed the lump in my throat. I assured myself that was all right. Leo and I could get by on our own. Leo was 16 years old, tall and thin. He had his father's dark eyes, but his face was softer. He didn't say much when I informed him it would only be the two of us. He simply shrugged, picked up the luggage, and escorted me to the vehicle like many teenagers. He sat in the passenger seat, listened to music, and gazed out the window. I couldn't help but smile while I observed him. He changed so quickly that I frequently worried that I may blink and lose him as well. As usual, my thoughts kept returning to Ethan as I drove to the shore. I recalled the activities we engaged in together. Vacations, long walks, and movie nights that are last-minute plans made solely for fun. I recalled how he used to caress me and how his eyes would light up when he saw me. Years had passed since I had experienced that emotion. I felt very little. I was exhausted from being invisible. When we arrived, Leo assisted me in moving our belongings to a peaceful area by the sea. I spread out the towels as he set up the umbrella. I simply had to speak with him for some reason. He might have been the only person present. Perhaps I just needed someone to listen. Do you think that being outside is pleasant? I made an effort to sound joyful as I spoke. He nodded and combed his hair back. Yeah, Mom, it's nice, he said. The heat of the sun touched my skin as I laid on the towel, even if it was only temporarily. I tried to forget about the stress of the previous few years by doing nothing for a bit. I then considered the sunblock. I stood up and turned to face Leo. I need your assistance to put this on my back, I inquired. I am unable to access it. After giving it some thought, he took the bottle away from me. With my back to the towel, I lay down once more and attempted to wait. His initial touch was gentle and cautious. As if he didn't want to injure me, I laughed because it reminded me of how, when he was smaller, he used his little fingers to hold my hand so we could cross the street. You may press a little harder, I advised him. However, I spoke quietly. Everything is fine. As he applied the oil to my back and shoulders, he gained confidence in himself. His hand's warmth and rhythm caused me to close my eyes. I gave myself permission to appreciate it for a little while. It had been a while since I had been touched. I shouldn't have said it since it stung a lot more. But then his hands began to slowly and carefully work their way down the curvature of my back. I opened my lips to speak, but nothing came out as I gulped for air. Despite having a lot on my thoughts, I remained silent. I convinced myself that he was only assisting and that I was making things up. Therefore everything was fine. However, I knew he set down the towel. but his hands hesitated for a second before hanging close to the edge. I sensed his uncertainty as much as mine, but I didn't stop him. Rather, I uttered regrettable things. "Everything is fine, you can touch that as well." The comment seemed risky, and as soon as I said it, I realized that nobody else was saying it. Leo didn't stop, and he didn't respond. I felt his hands touch things they shouldn't have while I tightly closed my eyes. I feared he might hear how quickly my heart was thumping. I was prepared to get up and order him to stop. However, I didn't. I didn't take any action. I'm still not really sure why. Perhaps it was the sense of isolation, perhaps I no longer cared. Or it might have been the craving for attention despite the fact that it was incorrect. Something inside of me broke on that beach day, and things haven't been the same ever since. I appreciate you sticking with me this long. I understand that this is difficult to hear, and I am grateful that you are. If you believe someone you know might find this story interesting, please like and subscribe. It makes me feel like I'm not alone and helps me tell more tales like this. Now let's proceed. After that day, everything felt different. I was unable to alter Leo's subsequent gaze on me, the events that transpired, or my feelings. It wasn't inconsequential or fleeting. It never ceased. I couldn't pinpoint what was causing him to look that way when I stared into his eyes. But I also couldn't turn my head away when we arrived home that evening. Everything was buried as if nothing had occurred. I made dinner, asked Leo about school, folded clothes late at night, and took care of my other responsibilities. My hands trembled the entire time as I reflected on what had transpired that day. His touch, his demeanor, and the way I felt stiff all brought him to mind. I didn't like that he made me feel that way about my own son, and I felt awful about what I did. Nothing odd caught Ethan's attention. He always arrived home late, his tie limp, and his face exhausted. He kissed my cheek out of habit, leaving a faint trace of the affection it once had. A long day. I asked to start a conversation. He simply nodded and groaned before heading into the living room. The customary action. His appearance gave me the impression that I had been forgotten and that I had never been seen again. Ethan slept beside me that night as I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Despite the silence in the home, my thoughts were very loud. My thoughts were constantly focused on Leo, his eyes, his hands, everything that had transpired. It was wrong, and I had to stop it before it got worse. However, a darker, more isolated side of me was drawn to it, yearning for the contact, the attention, and the feeling of being noticed. Leo never said anything about it as the days passed, but his silence screamed more than words. He didn't avoid me at all. Rather, he appeared to remain close. At night, he would observe me as I cleaned, cooked, or simply sat by myself. I allowed it to occur. I didn't stop either myself or him. The house felt like it was on fire, and it was terribly hot the next weekend. Because he had to work another last-minute shift, he was absent once more. Once more, it was only Leo and myself. I asked him if he was comfortable returning to the beach by himself. I don't know why I brought it up. I might have believed that spending more time outside would improve my ability to think effectively. I could have wanted to put myself to the test to see how far I could push. Everything aside, there was silence on the road. This time, Leo didn't use his ears. All he did was look out the window while his knee continued to move. I tried to say something. Anything, but no matter how hard I tried, the words would not come out. When we arrived, the beach was nearly deserted. The wind felt nice against my face, and the water had a vivid blue hue. We lay out the towels once more, and Leo assisted us in getting ready. This time, I couldn't bring myself to ask him to use sunscreen. I pretended nothing was wrong as I lay down and closed my eyes, but I could still feel his stares. I am positive that he saw me. Eventually, later that afternoon, everything broke. Before leaving, we decided to clean off in the beach showers. It was supposed to be a simple process to get rid of the sand. But an odd thing happened that I still don't understand. Leo was the first to enter the water and let it to run down his back. I avoided the route and paused to observe him before intervening. I'm not sure why, but I undressed and stood beside him in the refreshing water, allowing it to caress my skin. Leo gave me a startled glance. His face was difficult to read. It can be astonishment, uncertainty, or another factor. He remained silent after a moment of staring into his eyes. I urged him to remove his shorts as well. You must thoroughly rinse. I don't know why I said that. Perhaps I was attempting to prove to him that I was in control and could put an end to everything. Or perhaps I was just seeing how I fared. He took a minute, but eventually gave in and removed his shorts. As the rain fell, we were standing there alone. I asked slowly, "Help me with my back." With my back to him, he did, indeed. He used his touch cautiously, same as previously. There was obviously tension between us. When his hands brushed my waist, I froze. The sound of the river drowned out everything else in the dense air. I could have taken a break. I could have put an end to it. Rather, I took hold of his hands, leaned back against him, and brought them to my chest. When I fought back, he did in single quotes. What happened next is difficult for me to fully describe. I will not. It was a haze of loneliness, need, and something more profound that I am unable to identify. It wasn't supple. It was also not slow. It was ferocious, futile, and completely incorrect. Despite my desire to stop, I was unable to do so. I had no desire to. We simply remained there beneath the falling water after it was over, erasing anything that was visible but not the reality. He embraced me and hugged me like no one had in years. I gave him permission. We didn't say anything to one another after that. After a quiet stroll back to the vehicle, we packed up, dried up, and departed. I caught a peek of Leo out of the corner of my eye and saw that he had stiff movements and scarlet lips. I was aware that I had ruined everything. I firmly believed that we had crossed a boundary that would never be crossed again. Nevertheless, for the first time in years, I felt alive. The automobile ride home began peacefully enough. It was heavy and compressed within the vehicle, as if the air itself were pressing us down. Despite keeping my hands on the steering wheel and my eyes on the road, my mind continued to race. I could still feel him, his hands, the enormity of what had just transpired, and his presence. I was unable to look away from him in the passenger seat. He glanced out the window while remaining motionless. His flushed face and tense lips conveyed his level of distress. Then, without warning, he spoke. "Mom," he began in a low, reticent tone. I was unwilling to look at him, although I couldn't dare. I could clearly hear him. What were you up to back there?" My heart began to race. I briefly considered pretending that I hadn't heard him, shifting the topic, or ignoring it. But after what we did, denying it didn't help. Taking a trembling breath, I said, "I'm not sure." It was true, or as near to it as I could make it. I had a hard time understanding what had transpired. And the reason, all I knew was that everything had changed. When we pulled into the driveway, the silence continued. When I did, the engine stopped, but neither of us moved. Leo then gave me a really serious look. I was alarmed by what I saw in his eyes. It wasn't uncertainty, guilt, or humiliation. It was want. "For what duration have you been experiencing this?" When he asked, these words gave me the chills. I had been wondering the same thing. Something inside of me exploded as I met his eyes. "I'm not certain," I spoke quietly. "Maybe. I may have spoken for longer than I intended to." We sat there in the dark, the air heavy with the weight of our unsaid words. That, I think, was the end of it. We intended to walk inside, ignore it, and pretend it never happened. Leo had different thoughts. However, before I could open my door, he gave me a kiss. It was unsteady at first. He moved slowly, like he was worried I would pull away. However, I didn't. He kissed me back after I gave him a kiss. That's when I lost it. Either being by myself, not receiving care for years, or the way Leo looked at me in a manner that no one else had in a long time was the cause. Whatever it was, I didn't battle back. He drew me closer there outside our home. His hands were stroking over me like if they were supposed to. For the first time in what seemed like a long time, I felt alive. Required. Observed. Nothing else mattered. I'm not sure how long we were stuck together, but eventually we went inside. I can only recall the sensation of his hand on mine and the uncomfortable silence that followed. Not even how I arrived at the door. When they entered, the situation deteriorated. It seemed as though we had been suppressing it for a very long time and were now free to express it. The dam was broken. Following that, the days were overcast. Leo was usually near me, and when no one else was there, would find an excuse to touch or gaze at me. I kept telling myself to quit going through this. But every time I glanced at him, I saw the same emptiness I was experiencing. We seemed to be echoing one another's desires, and I was unable to refuse. I had no desire to. At night, I lay beside Ethan in bed and gazed up at the ceiling while listening to his steady respiration. All I could think of was Leo. When he touched me, I felt alive once more. My remorse felt like a snake inside of me. Yet it wasn't enough to stop me, even though I knew it wasn't right and wouldn't last. I couldn't resist the attraction. Our relationship deteriorated till it eventually ended. To distract myself from my problems, I scrubbed dishes at the kitchen sink one evening while Ethan worked late and Lily was sleeping. Leo was in the rear. Me? When I turned around, he gave me the identical look he had given me at the beach. I murmured softly to Leo. Voice, exercise caution. He did not, however, flee. He approached me so closely that I could feel his breath on my skin. "I think about you all the time, Mom," she replied. I became icy. I feared that my heart may explode due to its rapid pumping. I told him to wait, return to his room, and leave me alone. Although I shouldn't have, I did say that. I can't stop either. Things broke at that point. Leo gave me another kiss. It's more difficult and urgently needed this time. I gave him a kiss in return. I didn't care that it was incorrect. Ethan, Lily, and the life we had built together were all forgotten. Everything revolved on Leo, my boy, the only person who had given me a sense of importance in years. Nothing has returned to normal after that beach day. It never will, in my opinion. I can't take back the rule that Leo and I broke. The embarrassment is always there. That hurts a lot. However, it doesn't deter me. That is the main thing that worries me. I see Ethan and Lily every single day and question how they are unable to see it. The way they fail to notice the cracks in our family, they can be too preoccupied with their own life, or perhaps I've gotten better at hiding it. However, I am aware that this won't last. Secrets always seem to surface. When things break down, they will. I've attempted to stop it. I told myself it was terrible and that Leo and I both deserved more, but every time he looks at me or touches me as if I'm the only person who matters because of him. I haven't felt this alive in years, maybe ever. That is the reality I must confront. This is broken and I don't know how to fix it. I'm not sure if I can pull it off. I'm telling this story for that reason. I'm hoping that someone is aware of the reality, which is something I hadn't considered. Help me get out of this situation before it's too late, please. Please let me know if you need any assistance or if you know someone who has had the same problem. Let this serve as at least a caution. You can reach areas you never would have imagined when you were by yourself. Avoid letting it control your life the way it did mine. Don't wait until everything breaks down to comprehend what's happening. Once you step over that boundary, there's no turning back. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to express your thoughts. If this video resonated with you, please like it and subscribe for more. I have to feel like I'm not alone. The things we do to other people aren't usually the worst betrayals. We all treat ourselves in these ways.